The UES Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442c system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge stop talking. The planet looked angry. Dark clouds swirled around it like a hurricane that never ended. Lightning flashed between the clouds in colors that hurt to look at. The whole planet seemed to be wrapped in an electromagnetic storm. "My God," whispered Navigator Dong-hyun. "No wonder we lost contact with them." Captain Jin-A stared at the planet through the main screen. She had seen storm systems before, but nothing like this. "How long has this been going on?" Chief Engineer So Young checked her instruments. "The storm patterns show it started about 18 months ago, right when we lost contact with the colony." "That's quite a coincidence," said Lieutenant Commander Wu Jin. "I don't believe in coincidences," Jin-A replied. "So Young, can we get through that storm?" So Young worked at her console, running numbers and checking systems. "The electromagnetic interference is incredible. Our communications will be useless once we enter the atmosphere. Navigation systems will be unreliable. And if the storm gets worse, we could crash." Tae-hyun finished. Ginny studied the swirling clouds. 50,000 people were down there somewhere, maybe alive, maybe dead. But she had to know which one it was. "Take us in," she ordered. The Defiance began its descent toward the planet. As soon as they entered the outer atmosphere, every system on the ship started going crazy. Lights flickered. The computer screens showed random numbers. The ship shook, like it was being hit by invisible hands. "Hull temperature is rising," So Young reported, her voice tense. "The electromagnetic fields are interfering with our shields." "Hang on, everyone," Dong-hyun said through gritted teeth as he fought to keep the ship steady. Through the chaos of the storm, they caught glimpses of the planet's surface. It looked different from the pictures in the colony files. The ground seemed to glow with a strange light. Tall crystal formations jutted up from the earth like giant teeth. "Captain," Woo Jin called out, "I'm picking up something on the sensors. It looks like structures. Buildings." "The colony?" Jin-A asked. "Maybe. But the readings are strange. Some of the buildings appear to be underground." The ship broke through the lower clouds and suddenly the view became clearer. Below them lay what had once been New Seoul Colony, but it looked nothing like the happy settlement they had seen in the promotional videos. Half the buildings were gone. The rest looked damaged and dark. But there were new structures too. Strange metal, walls and barriers surrounded parts of the colony. Smoke rose from several locations. "There," Tae-hyun pointed at one of the screens. "I saw movement near that large building." Everyone strained to look. At first, Jin-A saw nothing. Then she spotted them, small figures running between the buildings, too far away to see clearly, but they moved like humans. "They're alive," she breathed. But as they got closer, they saw they weren't alone on the planet. Things moved in the crystal formations, large things that gleamed like metal but moved like living creatures. "What are those?" Woo Jin asked. Before anyone could answer, one of the crystal creatures launched itself at their ship. It was huge, at least 50 meters long and shaped like a snake made of living rock. Its body crackled with electrical energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Jinny shouted. Dong-hyun yanked the controls hard to the left. The Defiance rolled away from the creature, but barely in time. Where they had been a second before, the air now crackled with deadly lightning. More of them coming up from the crystal fields, So Young reported. Through the storm, they could see dozens of the creatures rising from the ground. They looked like a mix of crystal and metal, with bodies that seemed to flow like liquid while staying solid. Some were small and fast. Others were enormous and moved slowly but with terrible purpose. "Find us a place to land," Jin-A ordered. "Near the colony, but away from those things." "Working on it," Dong-hyun said. Sweat ran down his face as he piloted the ship through the chaotic storm while avoiding the crystal creatures. They found a flat area about 2 kilometers from the main colony buildings. The moment the Defiance touched down, the crystal creatures seemed to lose interest in them. They sank back into the ground like they were diving into water. "Atmosphere is breathable," Tae-hyun reported after checking his medical scanners. "But there's a lot of electrical activity in the air. Everyone will need protective suits." "And weapons," Wu Jin added. Those creatures didn't look friendly. 10 minutes later, Captain Jin-A led a small team away from their ship. Ambassador Hyun-woo had insisted on coming along. So-young and Tai-hyun completed the landing party. They left Woo-jin and Dong-hyun on the ship to keep it ready for a quick escape. The walk to the colony was like walking through a nightmare. The ground under their feet felt wrong. Sometimes it was solid rock. Other times it seemed soft like sand. Strange lights moved beneath the surface. The air smelled of electricity and something else, something organic and unpleasant. Look at these crystal formations, So-young said, stopping beside a tall spire that rose from the ground. They're not natural. Someone or something built these. The crystals were beautiful but scary. They pulsed with internal light and made soft humming sounds. When So-young got too close, the humming got louder and more angry. Don't touch anything, Jin-A warned. We don't know how this planet works yet. As they got closer to the colony, they could see the damage more clearly. Some buildings had been crushed by falling crystal spires. Others looked like they had been hit by lightning over and over again. But there were also signs of repair work and new construction. Someone had been fighting back. They reached the outer wall that surrounded part of the colony. It was made from pieces of mining equipment, ship parts, and anything else the colonists could find. Gun positions had been built into the wall. Empty shell casings littered the ground. Hello, Jin-A called out. This is Captain Jin-A of the QH Defiance. Is anyone there? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the wall moved aside and a person stepped out. She was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and dirty clothes, but she was definitely human and definitely alive. I'm Administrator Hyejin, she said. Her voice was rough from exhaustion. You're not supposed to be here. The council declared this sector off limits. The council declared you dead, Hyun-woo replied. We came to see if that was true. Hyejin laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dead? We've been fighting for our lives for 18 months. Follow me. There are people you need to meet. She led them through a tunnel that went underground. The walls were covered with cables and pipes. Emergency lights provided dim illumination. Everything looked like it had been built in a hurry by people who knew they might die if they made mistakes. What happened here? Taehyun asked. The crystals woke up, Hyejin said simply. For 60 years we thought they were just pretty rocks. Then one day they started moving, started thinking, started trying to kill us. They emerged into a large underground chamber. Jin-A gasped. Hundreds of people filled the space. Men, women, and children, all living in what looked like a military bunker. But they weren't just hiding. They were working. People repaired weapons at makeshift workbenches. Others monitored computer screens showing the area around the colony. Children played quiet games while adults planned their next move. These weren't refugees waiting to be rescued. These were soldiers in a war nobody knew was happening. 50,000 people lived here when the crystals woke up, Hyejin explained. We lost 8,000 in the first week. But we learned fast. We adapted. We fought back. How? Jin-A asked. An older man approached them. His name was Kyung-ho, and he had been the colony's chief technician before the war started. We turned our mining equipment into weapons, he said proudly. Laser cutters became laser cannons. Atmospheric processors became shield generators. We built an entire underground city using nothing but mining tools and human stubbornness. Jin-A looked around the chamber with new respect. These people had been abandoned by the galaxy, left to die on a hostile world. But they hadn't died. They had adapted and survived. The electromagnetic storm, So-young said. Is that natural? Hyejin and Kyung-ho exchanged looks. That's complicated, Hyejin said. Come with us. There's someone you need to meet. Someone who figured out what we're really fighting. Hyejin led them deeper into the underground complex. The tunnels were bigger than Jin-A had expected. People had built an entire city down here. She saw sleeping areas, food storage rooms, workshops, and even a small hospital. How did you build all this so fast? Ambassador Hyun-woo asked. We had help, Hyejin replied. Not the kind you might think. They reached a heavy door marked with warning signs. Hyejin pressed her hand against a scanner. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a laboratory filled with strange equipment. Computers showed wave patterns and energy readings that made no sense to Jin-A. At the center of it all stood a young woman with bright eyes and messy hair. "This is Dr. Yunseo," Hyejin said. "Our xenobiologist. She figured out what we're really fighting." Yunseo looked up from her work. "You're from the rescue ship? Good. I have so much to show you." She activated a large holographic display. The image showed the planet's crystal formations, but now they looked different. Connected, like a vast network spreading across the entire world. "The crystals aren't just rocks," Yunseo explained. "They're a single living organism, a hive mind, that's been sleeping under this planet for millions of years." Jin-A stared at the display. "Sleeping? Until we woke it up with our mining operations," Yunseo continued. "The vibrations from our equipment, the electromagnetic fields from our technology, to the crystals, we looked like a disease that needed to be removed." Chief Engineer So Young studied the readings. "This network covers the entire planet? Every continent, every ocean floor. It's massive beyond anything we've ever discovered." Yunseo's excitement was obvious despite the dangerous situation. "But here's the interesting part. It's not evil, it's just confused." "Confused?" Taehyun asked. "Think about it," Yunseo said. "This organism has been alone for millions of years. Suddenly, tiny creatures appear and start digging holes in its body. Its first reaction is to defend itself, but it doesn't understand what we are or why we're here." Hyejin nodded. "The electromagnetic storm isn't an attack. It's the crystals trying to communicate with us. They're using the only language they know, energy patterns." "So why haven't you tried to talk back?" Jin-A asked. "We have," said a new voice. A young man entered the laboratory. He looked tired but determined. "I'm Minho. I used to be a communications technician. Now I guess I'm our first contact specialist." Minho walked to another console. Dr. Yunseo figured out that the crystals communicate using harmonic frequencies, sound patterns that travel through their network. "I've been trying to learn their language for 6 months." "Any success?" Hyunwoo asked. "Some. I can send basic concepts, simple ideas like stop attacking and we are not enemies. But their communication system is incredibly complex. It's like trying to learn an entire language. When you only know 3 words, Jin-A was beginning to understand the situation. "So you've been fighting a war with someone you're trying to make peace with?" "Exactly," Hyejin said. "But we're not giving up. On either front." She led them to another room where Jin-A saw something that made her heart swell with pride. Colonists worked together in perfect coordination. Some modified mining lasers to be more effective against crystal creatures. Others planned defensive strategies using maps of the underground network. But what impressed her most was how organized they were. These people had been cut off from the rest of humanity for 18 months. They had faced death every single day. But they hadn't panicked. They hadn't given up. They had adapted and kept fighting. Lieutenant Commander Woo Jin would have loved this. The colonists had turned asymmetric warfare into an art form. "Show them the tunnel system," Kyung-ho suggested. Hyejin smiled. "This might be my favorite part." They took a transport cart through a series of tunnels that seemed to go on forever. The walls were smooth and perfectly round. "We didn't build these tunnels," Hyejin explained. "The crystals did. They're part of their communication network, but we figured out how to use them." "Use them how?" So Young asked. "Transportation, supply lines. And the best part, the crystals can't attack us while we're inside their own tunnels. It would be like punching themselves in the face." The cart stopped at an observation platform. Through a transparent wall, Jin-A could see one of the massive crystal creatures moving through the tunnel. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its body flowed like water but sparkled like diamonds. "We call them Nethys," Yunseo said. "It means crystal singers in an old Earth language. Listen." She activated a speaker system. The sound that came through was unlike anything Jin-A had ever heard. It was music, but alien music. Haunting harmonies that seemed to come from the planet itself. "That's how they talk to each other," Minho explained. Every crystal formation on the planet is like a single voice in a huge choir. When they all sing together, they can share thoughts and feelings across thousands of kilometers. It's actually quite beautiful, Taehyun said softly. Until they sing Kill the Humans, whoa, Heejin added with dark humor. Then it gets less beautiful very quickly. They returned to the main command center where Jin-A saw the colonists' greatest achievement. A massive tactical display showed the entire planet. Green dots marked human positions. Red dots showed Nethys activity. Yellow dots indicated neutral zones where both species coexisted peacefully. You've mapped their entire civilization, So Young said in amazement. We had to, replied Il-sung, the colony's chief engineer. Know your enemy, right? Except we learned they're not really our enemies. They're just neighbors we haven't properly introduced ourselves to yet. Jin-A studied the display. The colonists had done more than just survive. They had learned to understand an alien species that the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. What's your next move? She asked. Hyojin and her team exchanged looks. They had clearly been planning something. We think we figured out how to end the war, Minho said. Not by winning it, but by changing the rules completely. How? Yunseo stepped forward. Music, human music. Jin-A blinked. I'm sorry? The Nethys communicate through harmonic patterns, Yunseo explained. But their patterns are very simple compared to human music. When I accidentally played a symphony through their network, it caused chaos in their communications. Good chaos or bad chaos? Taehyun asked. Confusion chaos, Minho said. They couldn't understand how such complex harmonies were possible. It was like showing someone who only knew addition how to do calculus. So we realized something, Heejin continued. What if we could teach them our music? Show them that we're not a disease but a different kind of intelligence. One that creates beauty instead of just destroying things? Jin-A was quiet for a long moment. The plan was crazy, but it was the kind of crazy that might actually work. The kind of crazy that was uniquely human. What do you need from us? She finally asked. Help broadcasting, Il-sung said. We need more power to send our signal across the entire planet, simultaneously. And we need the kind of music that will really impress them. What kind of music impresses a planet-sized alien intelligence? Hyunwoo asked. Minho grinned. Everything. Classical symphonies, rock concerts, folk songs, electronic music. The more variety, the better. We want to show them just how creative humans can be. Ginny felt a smile spreading across her face. The Galactic Council had written off these colonists as dead. But not only were they alive, they were about to attempt something that had never been done before in galactic history. They were going to end a war with a concert. Let's do it, she said. The preparations took 3 days. Captain Ginny watched in amazement as the colonists worked with her crew to set up the most unusual first contact attempt in galactic history. Chief Engineer So Young worked with Il-sung to connect the Defiance's communication systems to the colony's network. They needed enough power to broadcast across the entire planet simultaneously. The tricky part, Il-sung explained as he calibrated a massive transmitter, is matching our signal to their harmonic frequencies without causing interference. What happens if we get it wrong? So Young asked. Best case scenario? Nothing happens. And we try again. Worst case scenario? We accidentally tell every crystal creature on the planet to attack us at once. So Young paused in her work. That's not very reassuring.
Welcome to life on Kepler 442c, Il-sung said with a tired smile. We stopped worrying about worst-case scenarios months ago. Now we just focus on making the best-case scenarios happen. Meanwhile, Minho worked with the ship's computer to compile
the largest collection of human music ever assembled. Classical pieces from Earth's greatest composers, rock songs that had inspired generations, folk music from dozens of different cultures, electronic compositions that pushed the boundaries of sound. We need variety, he explained to Dr. Taehyun, who was helping organize the music files. The Nethys are incredibly intelligent, but their communication is very structured, very predictable. Human music is chaotic and creative in ways they've never experienced. Will they understand it? Taehyun asked. They don't have to understand it, Minho replied. They just need to recognize that something created it on purpose, something intelligent and creative. Dr. Yoon Seo spent her time studying the Nethys, communication patterns, looking for the perfect moment to begin the broadcast. Their network has daily cycles, she explained to Captain Ginny. Times when the whole planet is listening more carefully. If we time this right, every crystal formation on Kepler 442c will hear our message simultaneously. And if we time it wrong, then parts of the planet might not get the full signal. The message could be incomplete or confusing. Jin-A nodded. Everything had to be perfect. They would only get one chance at this. But the most important preparation was happening in the colony's main gathering hall. Hundreds of colonists had volunteered to be part of the broadcast. They would sing along with the recorded music, adding human voices to the signal. Hee-jin stood before the crowd of volunteers. These were people who had been fighting for their lives for 18 months. Parents who had lost children to the crystal, creatures, engineers who had seen their life's work destroyed, miners who had watched their friends die in attacks they didn't understand, but they weren't angry. They weren't seeking revenge. They were hoping for peace. I know this seems strange, Hee-jin told them. We've been fighting the Nethys for so long that the idea of talking to them feels almost impossible. But that's what makes us human, isn't it? We don't just fight. We try to understand. We try to find better ways. A woman in the crowd raised her hand. Jin-A recognized her as one of the colonists who had lost family in the early attacks. What if it doesn't work? She asked. What if they still want to kill us after hearing our music? Hee-jin was quiet for a moment. It was a fair question, and everyone knew it. Then we'll keep fighting, she finally said. But at least we'll know we tried everything. At least we'll know we didn't give up the chance for peace just because we were afraid. The woman nodded. Around the hall, other colonists murmured their agreement. These people had already proven they wouldn't give up easily. Now they were proving they were willing to risk everything for the chance of something better. Ambassador Hyun-woo watched from the back of the hall. He thought about the Galactic Council and their cold calculations about acceptable losses. If they could see this, he wondered, would they understand? Would they realize that the greatest strength of humanity wasn't their weapons or their technology, but their refusal to stop hoping? The broadcast was scheduled for the following morning, during what Dr. Yoon Seo called the planetary listening period. But that night something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Commander Woo Jin was monitoring the ship's sensors when he detected movement near the colony. Large movement. Captain, he called over the communication system. You need to see this. Jin-A and her team rushed to the observation post that the colonists had built on the surface. What they saw made everyone stop breathing. Crystal creatures surrounded the colony. Not attacking, just waiting. Hundreds of Nethys of all sizes formed a perfect circle around the human settlement. They stood perfectly still, their bodies pulsing with soft light. What are they doing? So, Young whispered. Dr. Yoon Seo checked her instruments. They're listening. The harmonic readings show they're in a receptive communication mode. They know, Minho said with wonder in his voice. Somehow, they know we're planning to talk to them. Hee-jin stared at the crystal creatures. After 18 months of war, seeing them this close without weapons firing was almost surreal. Maybe they want peace as much as we do, she said softly. Dawn came with clear skies. The electromagnetic storm had calmed to barely a whisper. The crystal creatures remained in their circle, patient as mountains. In the broadcasting center, humans and technology worked together for something unprecedented. The signal went out at exactly the moment Dr. Yoon Seo had calculated. It started with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The powerful, triumphant music flowed through the crystal network, carrying with it the voices of the human colonists. Across the planet, crystal formations began to pulse in rhythm with the music. Then came Mozart, delicate and precise. Rock music that made the crystal creatures vibrate with excitement. folk songs that told stories of human hopes and dreams, electronic music that pushed the boundaries of sound itself. For 6 hours, the broadcast continued. The colonists sang until their voices were hoarse. The transmitters poured every piece of human music they could find into the planetary network, and the Nethys listened. Through her instruments, Dr. Yunseo watched as the entire planet responded. Crystal formations that had been silent for millions of years began to sing new songs. Simple melodies at first, then more complex harmonies as they learned from the human examples. "They're trying to copy us," she reported with excitement. "They're learning our music and making their own versions." But the most amazing thing happened near the end of the broadcast. The circle of crystal creatures around the colony began to sing along. Their alien voices blended with human voices in harmonies that had never existed before. Music that was neither fully human nor fully alien. Something new. Something that belonged to both species. When the broadcast finally ended, the silence felt different. Not empty, but peaceful. The electromagnetic storm was completely gone. The crystal creatures remained in their circle, but now their light pulsed in gentle, welcoming patterns. Administrator He-Jin walked to the edge of the colony, close to the nearest Nethys. It was a small one, barely larger than a human, with a body that sparkled like a geode. She began to hum one of the folk songs they had broadcast. Simple and quiet. The crystal creature hummed back. The same melody, but in harmonics that made it sound like a choir of angels. He-Jin smiled and hummed, a different tune. The creature followed, adding its own variations and flourishes. Back and forth they went, human and alien, teaching each other the languages of music and hope. Behind He-Jin, the other colonists watched in wonder. After 18 months of war, peace had finally come to Kepler 442c, but this was just the beginning. 3 weeks after the music broadcast, ships began arriving at Kepler 442c. Not rescue ships. The colonists no longer needed rescuing. These were Galactic Council vessels, drawn by reports that seemed too incredible to believe. Captain Jin A stood on the surface of the planet, watching the alien ships descend through clear skies. No electromagnetic storm blocked their way now. The atmosphere was calm and peaceful. Beside her, Administrator He-Jin smiled as she watched a small crystal creature, one they had nicknamed Melody, create beautiful patterns in the air with controlled electrical discharges. The Nethys had learned to make art with their natural abilities. "They're going to want explanations," Jin-A said. "Let them ask," He-Jin replied. "We have plenty to show them." The first ship to land belonged to Counselor Vexitar. The tall, four-armed alien emerged looking confused and annoyed. Behind him came other council members, including Counselor Nethara, with her 6 floating eyes. "Captain Jin A," Vexitar said in his cold voice. "You were ordered to stay away from this dead sector. Good thing I don't take orders from people who write off 50,000 humans as acceptable losses," Jin-A replied calmly. Ambassador Hyun-Woo approached the group. "Counselors, welcome to New Seoul Colony. As you can see, the reports of our death were greatly exaggerated." Vexitar looked around at the rebuilt colony with obvious confusion. The buildings were different now. Human architecture blended with crystal formations in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Beautiful and functional at the same time. "How did you survive the electromagnetic storms?" Nethara asked, her 6 eyes moving independently to take in everything. "We didn't survive them," Dr. Yunseo said, approaching the group. "We learned to communicate with them." Before the counselors could ask what she meant, the ground beneath their feet began to glow softly. Crystal formations rose from the earth, in perfect spirals. The Nethys were saying hello in their own way. Vexitar stepped back in alarm. "Are we under attack?" "Quite the opposite," said Minho, joining the group. "They're welcoming you to their home." What followed was the most unusual, diplomatic meeting in galactic history. The council members were led through the colony, seeing how humans and Nethys now lived together. Crystal creatures helped with construction projects, their ability to shape rock making building much easier. Humans shared their music and art, teaching the Nethys about creativity and individual expression. In the research center, Dr. Yun Seo showed them the breakthrough technologies that had emerged from human-Nethys cooperation. The crystals can process information at quantum speeds, she explained, gesturing to a computer terminal that seemed to be grown rather than built. But they think in collective patterns. Humans think individually and creatively. Together, we're developing computational systems that are more powerful than anything either species could create alone. Chief Engineer So Young demonstrated the new power generation systems. The Nethys can store and transfer electrical energy through their crystal network. We've learned to tap into that network safely. This colony now produces more energy than it uses and can share power with other settlements across the planet. But the most impressive demonstration came from Il Sung, who showed the council the new mining techniques. The Nethys know their planet better than we ever could, he explained as they watched crystal creatures carefully extract valuable minerals without damaging the surrounding rock. They can sense the best deposits and extract them without the environmental damage our old methods caused. Counselor Vextar examined the refined crystals with obvious interest. These were purer and more valuable than anything the galaxy had seen before. The economic implications are, he began. Significant, Administrator Haijin finished. But that's not why we did this. The real revelation came when the council members met with the Nethys directly. Minho had developed translation protocols that allowed basic communication between the species. Through harmonic converters, the ancient crystal intelligence spoke to the galactic community for the first time. We greet the star children, the Nethys said, their words translated into multiple languages simultaneously. The small singers have taught us new songs. We wish to learn more. Counselor Nethara's 6 eyes widened. They're remarkably intelligent. We have been alone for many cycles, the Nethys continued. The small singers brought us companionship and new ways of thinking. We offer friendship to all who come in peace. What the council learned over the following days changed everything. The Nethys possessed knowledge of galactic geology that went back millions of years. They understood planetary formation, mineral, distribution, and energy systems in ways that no other species had ever imagined. More importantly, they were willing to share that knowledge with species that approached them with respect and cooperation rather than exploitation. This changes the entire balance of power in this sector, Vextar admitted privately to Captain Jin A. The strategic and economic value of this world is not the point, Jin A interrupted. The point is that 50,000 humans were supposed to die, and instead they found a way to make friends with a planet. But Vextar was right about the implications. Word of the Kepler 442c colony spread throughout the galaxy. Other species wanted to establish trade relationships with the Nethys. Scientists wanted to study their technology. Diplomats wanted to establish formal treaties. The colony that had been written off as a total loss became one of the most important worlds in the galaxy almost overnight. 6 months later, Captain Jin A returned to Kepler 442c for the official ceremony. The planet was now recognized as a joint human-Nethys protectorate, with Administrator Haijin serving as the first interspecies colonial governor. The ceremony took place in the new Great Hall, a building that perfectly blended human and Nethys architecture. Representatives from dozens of species attended, all eager to establish relationships with the unique colony. But for Jin A, the most important moment came when she found Haijin standing alone on a balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Any regrets? Jin A asked. Haijin smiled. About what? Nearly dying? Fighting a war with creatures we didn't understand? Being abandoned by the galaxy? All of it. No, Haijin said firmly. Every struggle brought us to this moment. We learned that we're stronger than we thought. We discovered that making friends is better than making enemies. And we proved that humans don't give up on each other. Jin A nodded. The council has officially changed their policies about colony rescue missions, you know. No more writing off settlements as acceptable losses. Good, Haijin replied. But honestly, I think we would have been okay either way. Humans are survivors. We find ways to thrive even when the universe tries to kill us. As if summoned by their conversation, Melody appeared beside them. The small crystal creature had become Hyejin's constant companion and had learned to communicate in simple human words. Friend Ginny. Melody sang in harmonics that sounded like wind chimes. Thank you for bringing the star music. Ginny laughed. Thank you for teaching us that making music together is better than making war. Later that evening, as the IE ceremony continued below, Ginny recorded her final report on the Kepler 442c mission. Captain's log, final entry. The colony that was declared lost has become the foundation for a new type of interspecies cooperation. The humans who were written off as acceptable losses have instead become teachers, showing the galaxy that there are always alternatives to giving up. The Galactic Council learned something important here. They learned that when humans say never forsaken, we mean it. We don't abandon our people. We don't calculate the cost of human lives against the price of rescuing them. But more than that, we learned that our greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our refusal to accept that any problem is unsolvable. Our willingness to try impossible things because they're worth trying. The Council declared them lost. But humanity said, never forsaken. And in the end, we didn't just save 50,000 lives. We opened the door to a future where species learn to understand each other instead of fighting each other. That's not just a victory. That's who we are. Outside her window, humans and Nethys worked together under alien stars, building something new and wonderful from the ashes of what could have been a tragedy. The galaxy was learning what it meant to be human, and humanity was learning that they were never really alone. In the crystal formations that covered the planet, new songs echoed through the night, melodies that belonged to no single species, but to all of them together. The music of hope, the harmony of friendship, the symphony of a universe where nobody gets left behind, because that's what it means to be human. And that's a lesson worth sharing with the stars. The big room was quiet. Too quiet. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his chair and looked at the alien faces around him. The Galactic Council meeting was almost over. He knew what was coming next. He had been dreading this moment for weeks. Counselor, Vextar stood up. The tall alien had blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was cold like ice. The human colony on planet Kepler 442c has been silent for 18 months. No messages, no calls for help. Nothing. Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. 50,000 humans lived on that planet. 50,000 people with families, dreams, and hopes. They had gone there to build a new life, to mine valuable crystals and make the planet their home. We have decided, Vextar continued. The colony is lost. The people are dead. We will not waste resources on a rescue mission. Other alien council members nodded. The Zephyrians moved their tentacles in agreement. The crystalline beings made clicking sounds that meant yes in their language. To them, it was simple math. 50,000 lives versus the cost of a rescue mission. The math said, let them stay, lost. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. His hands shook with anger. You cannot just give up on them. These are people. Human beings with families waiting for them. Ambassador, said Counselor Nathara, a floating creature with 6 eyes. Your species chose to settle a dangerous world. The risks were known. The electromagnetic storms on that planet make communication very hard. If they were alive, they would have found a way to contact us. But what if they are alive? Hyunwoo asked. What if they need help? Vextar's 4 arms moved in a gesture. That meant the discussion was over. The sector is now marked as a dead zone. No ships will go there. This decision is final. The council meeting ended. One by one, the alien representatives left the chamber. Their ships would return to their home worlds. They would file reports. They would mark Kepler 442c as another failed human colony. Just numbers in a computer. But Hyunwoo stayed in his chair. He thought about the last message from the colony. It had come 18 months ago. Colony Administrator Hyejin had sounded tired but hopeful. She had talked about the beautiful sunsets and the progress they were making. The crystal mines were producing well. The children were happy in their new schools. Then nothing. Complete silence. Captain Ginny watched the alien ships leave through the window of her starship. The UES Defiance floated in space near the council station. She had been waiting for news about the colony. Now she had her answer, and she did not like it. Her crew gathered on the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Wu Jin stood beside her chair. He was young but smart. Chief Engineer So Young checked her tablet. She always had the latest technical reports. Medical Officer Tae Hyun looked worried. He had friends on Kepler 442c. So that's it? Wu Jin asked. We just leave them? Jin-A watched the last alien ship disappear into hyperspace. The council says they're dead. Case closed. But Captain, So Young said, the electromagnetic storms could have cut off their communications. That doesn't mean they're dead. Tae Hyun nodded. I served with some of those colonists. They're tough people. Survivors. Jin-A had been thinking the same thing. She had read the files about Kepler 442c. The planet was dangerous, yes, but it was also rich in rare crystals that humans needed for their technology. The colonists knew the risks when they went there, but more importantly, they were human, and humans did not give up easily. Navigator Dong Hyun, Jin-A called to the young man at the navigation station. Plot a course for Kepler 442c. The bridge went quiet. Everyone stared at her. Wu Jin spoke first. Captain, the council just declared that sector off limits. The council declared those people lost, Jin-A said. I didn't. So Young looked up from her tablet. Captain, with respect, this could be career suicide. If we disobey the council's order, then what? Jin-A asked. They'll court-martial me? Fine. But I won't sleep at night knowing I left 50,000 people to die because some aliens think it costs too much to save them. She stood up and walked to the big window. Space was beautiful out there. Stars everywhere, each one representing possibilities. Somewhere out there on a distant planet, humans might be fighting to survive. They might be looking up at their sky and hoping someone would come for them. I joined the Earth Navy to protect human lives, Jin-A said. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Ambassador Hyun-woo entered the bridge at that moment. He looked tired and angry. Captain Jin-A, I assume you heard the council's decision? I heard it, Jin-A replied. I just don't accept it. Hyun-woo smiled for the first time all day. Good, because I have some information the council didn't want to hear. He activated a holographic display. A map of the Kepler 442c system appeared in the air. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors picked up something interesting. Energy readings from the planet's surface. What kind of energy? So Young asked. Human energy signatures, Hyun-woo said. Very faint, but definitely there. Someone is using human technology on that planet. The crew exchanged looks. This changed everything. Why didn't the council listen to this? Wu Jin asked. Because they said it could be equipment running on automatic systems, Hyun-woo replied. They said it didn't prove anyone was alive. But it doesn't prove they're dead either, Tae-hyun said. Jin-A felt her decision becoming stronger. How long would it take us to reach Kepler 442c? 6 days at maximum warp, Dong-hyun answered. Then we leave in 1 hour, Jin-A announced. Get the ship ready. Full supplies, extra medical equipment, and rescue gear. Captain, So Young said carefully, what if the council is right? What if we get there and find nothing but empty buildings? Ginny looked at each member of her crew. These were good people, brave people. They trusted her to make the right decisions. Then we'll know we tried. But I have a feeling we're going to find something the council didn't expect. What's that? Wu Jin asked. Survivors, Ginny said, because that's what humans do. We survive. 1 hour later, the UES Defiance left the council station behind. The ship's engines glowed bright blue as it jumped into hyperspace. Inside, the crew prepared for what might be the most important mission of their lives. In his quarters, Ambassador Hyun-woo recorded a message to Earth Command. This is Ambassador Hyun-woo. I am joining Captain Ginny on an unauthorized rescue mission to Kepler 442c. If we don't return, Know that we died trying to save human lives. That's what makes us human. Captain Jinneh stood on the bridge and watched the stars streak by outside. Somewhere ahead, 50,000 people might be waiting for rescue, or they might be dead. She wouldn't know until she got there. But one thing, she knew for certain. She would rather face court-martial than live with the regret of not trying. The council had written off those colonists as acceptable losses. But humans had a different way of thinking about their own people. Nobody gets left behind. That wasn't just a motto. It was who they were. The Defiance flew on through space carrying hope toward a distant world where humanity's greatest strength would soon be tested.